Hello friends, I'm Jonathan Pishner with Apex Counseling, and I'm pretty excited to do a video today that has the potential to be beneficial to pretty much anyone. You know, some of the videos we put up are pretty specific in who they're able to be helpful to, and today's pretty much anyone can make use of anytime they're experiencing any sort of emotional turbulence or difficulty. So I wanted to take a few minutes and talk about how the selection of your behaviors can really impact your mood in positive ways. And the cool thing is, most humans already instinctively do this to some level. Just the only problem with it is sometimes the selection that occurs, they instinctively don't select the best things. They just select behaviors to try and be helpful. So one of the things that happens with that is we will naturally gravitate towards eating as a source of emotional comfort. Matter of fact, we know this so well, we have a special class of food that we call comfort food. We recognize that we are engaging with that as a means of feeling better. As a long-term strategy, it's not a terrific strategy, of course, because most comfort food is high in things that are bad for your body physically. So using it as a long-term strategy will usually have some negative health problems. But, we instinctively go towards that. And as a 1 or 2 time thing, it's really not that bad. The other one we will instinctively move towards, especially today, is spacing out into screens. We'll just kind of like mindlessly scroll Netflix or Facebook. We'll spend time binging on Netflix, all those kinds of things, which is a means of kind of like turning off whatever we're experiencing, trying to numb out of it. It's also a legitimate strategy, but again, not terrific for a long-term strategy, since usually what it is, it's kind of like mentally popping a pain pill. Like, it numbs you out, but it doesn't actually address or fix or do anything really with what's going on. It just prevents you from feeling the pain for that time you're engaging with it, which can be useful. But again, as a long-term strategy, maybe not the best. So I wanted to suggest 3 things that I've noticed are most massively helpful to people in terms of better behavioral strategies for helping with emotions. And the first one is getting out of your head and into your body. Usually this is through some form of physical exercise. And there's, hundreds of ways that can look. Just off the top of my head, CrossFit, weightlifting, running, martial arts, skiing, playing a sport, tennis, racquetball, basketball. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of ways to get out of your head and into your body. And the nice thing is, it doesn't even necessarily have to be something super strenuous. There's a lot of research being done now on how yoga affects mental health positively, affects emotions positively. Back in the 90s and 2000s, Tai Chi was researched a great deal and was shown to help with moods and emotions. So really, it doesn't not like it has to be like strenuous, like you're pouring the sweat or anything like that. It's really just anything that gets you out of the brain and into attending to the rest of the physical body. It's kind of why comfort food works for us, because for that very short time, we're in our taste buds and we're in our stomach, but it just doesn't pay high dividends in terms of how long it sticks around. Like, getting into your body in other ways tends to be stickier. Like the effects will stay longer. So if you are doing something like either weightlifting or yoga or whatever, those effects tend to stick around for some hours afterward instead of just minutes. So of course, if you're making this a regular part of your routine, then basically you're creating a situation where you're keeping your positive benefits possibly until the next time you go get in your body. So as a long-term strategy, it's much more effective, much less likely to have negative health consequences, and just overall seems to work better for people when they end up doing it. The second one is getting into an activity that requires some level of focus. This is kind of what we're instinctively trying to do when we go to the screen stuff. Unfortunately, that stuff tends to just numb us out. Getting into other activities that require mindful focus do a couple of things for us. Number one, it does strengthen the brain's ability to shift focus intentionally. So, it's focused over here on negative emotions, and you're intentionally causing it to go to other areas and cause those to fire, and essentially draw the energy away from the emotion centers. So as you're doing this, you're strengthening the ability for the brain to intentionally do that. And as a secondary benefit, usually when people are engaged in some activity of that type, they will come away with more sense of accomplishment, assuming they pick the correct thing. Because usually what we're talking about here, when we talk about getting out of your head and into a focus required activity, we're thinking of people engaging in some sort of art, the musician who's writing or playing their music, or, somebody painting, somebody writing. We're thinking of, a mechanic who works on fixing cars. Almost any activity can require mindful focus if you pick the right ones. You just got to pick the ones you yourself are engaged in. And just to put an important warning on this one of the things I've noticed is now that screens are so easy to go to, sometimes people kind of have to talk themselves into doing the non-screen activity. So just have the awareness that you might actually have to get over that slight hump. But it's the same thing, just like with the exercise. The positive effects tend to be stickier. When you go to, when you space out into screens, basically as soon as you put that down, the negative emotions are back exactly as high as when you started scrolling through whatever. But when you are getting out of your head and into a focus required activity, it tends to give you benefit even after you stop the activity. Even when the negative emotions come back, they tend to be less. They tend to be reduced. And then the third one, hanging out with positive people. So hopefully everybody who watches this video has people in their life that are reasonably happy, healthy, positive people. Friends, family members, co-workers. When you spend time around them, an interesting dynamic that happens is they can kind of like help pull you out of some of your negative emotions. I mean, it's not going to automatically make you happy and bubbly, but what most people unfortunately do is if they're feeling negative and down, they will tend to gravitate towards hanging out with somebody else who is negative, down, complaining. And what that creates is kind of a feedback loop. You usually come away feeling worse when you do that. When you're intentionally selecting being around happy, positive people, it's much easier for you to come away with a feeling of increased well-being, and for that increased well-being to stick around. So notice the thing that I keep pushing: activities and behaviors that have some level of stickiness. Once you end the thing, the benefit will tend to stick around. So those are the three things: getting into your body, getting into a focus required activity, and hanging around with positive, healthy people. These are three great behaviors that can positively impact your emotions if you are having a tough time. This is not by any means an exhaustive list. I just picked the three that I noticed seem to be most helpful for people. There are easily 50 or 100 that I didn't bother mentioning in this video because I didn't want to make a 3-hour video. So hopefully this information is helpful to somebody out there. And if you know someone who's having a tough time, maybe share it with them so they can get the information too. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little bit. My name is Jonathan Pishner with Apex Counseling, and I'll see you guys next time.